What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by the pride of Drogheda, Ciaran Clarke, before his fight at PFL Belfast against Dean Garnett. And he's come back after a while out. Ciaran, how are things? How good is it to be back? How good is it to hear you have a fight signed and you're ready to come back after the time on the sidelines?
Oh, it's great, Sean, to be honest. Absolutely buzzing out, to be honest, because and as well, it just feels like normal to be back, and it never feels like I've left. And that was the same when I got back into training and stuff as well, and got into the flow of things. But yeah, it's been 18 months since I fought, so due to the injury, obviously, and since having to pull out of the 500 grand tournament and the world title world tournament with PFL, so quite the stinger, all right, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. But glad to be back, and glad to be in there now with Dean as well, and which is a good opponent, and yeah, absolutely delighted. Thanks for having me on.
Not a bother. I suppose we'll start with that and the bad part of it. So you ruptured your MCL, is that right? How did that happen? And that must have been really tough to deal with when it happened around this time last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, what date's it today, Sean? There you go. That's mad. 10th of March, Jesus. 2025. I wasn't at the races that day at all. It was a Monday. Just wasn't feeling it. I just get me through the session. I just pushed through the usual cracker, and the second round I think it was with Nate Kelly. He was preparing for the tournament as well, and I took him down, and it was a kind of, what would you say? It was a single leg up against the wall. Daniel Cormier is very was famous for. We call it the Cormier, and you put your foot in between him and the wall and bring him over your leg. He's not able to balance, so Nate lost his balance on the way down. He had no control of his weight, so it wasn't his fault. No control of his weight, and I took my foot off the ground ever so slightly and just felt an electric shock kind of in the leg. And I was like, oh, I just knew straight away. And me and Nate knew. I was like, right, I felt the pop straight away. I got up off the mat and walked off the mat and iced it and the whole lot. And I kind of looked at it for a few days. I was just on the bike and stuff and just doing what I could with it and that. And then I said, I'm going to get a scan here because I don't think it doesn't feel right. Like, I'd feel it kind of the way I'd move and stuff. I was like, oh, getting in the van or something. And I was like, it doesn't feel right. So anyway, next day I got the MRI, and I actually was embarrassed nearly answering the phone. I was like, "Oh, you're going to tell me you're a woman here? Cop on, And he was like, "Look, here, it's not good news." I was like, "What?" And he was like, "No, it's not good news." I was in the gym at the time, going at it on an assault bike, and he was like, "No, you're going to need surgery." I was like, "What? You joking me?" He was like, "Look, if you don't do this now, you're going to need a full reconstruction of your knee." So basically, what happened was it was a completely avulsed, which basically lost complete tension. So my ligament is like an accordion. So thankfully they were able to use the ligaments. They were able to pin it back and staple it. But yeah, if I did, which I was planning to do for 10 days, I was saying no to physios, and I was, didn't tell John and Dave the extent of the injury, and I was going to go do the tournament. But unfortunately then I had to withdraw, and I'm glad I did then, because it was the right decision, and it would have been even a longer recovery. I probably wouldn't even be back by now, to be honest, because it would have been like an ACL surgery. So, but anyway, back now, and that was kind of really it then, Sean.
I suppose, like, for yourself and fighters like you really get good at getting through things physically. You do that every single day. You put yourself in pain, getting punched in the face and armbar and the whole lot. Is it the mental part that's the toughest? We could talk about the mental part over the 12 months, but that initial 10 days that you mentioned there, is that kind of like, I hope I get this phone call and I hope it's good? Or is it like, is it doom? What way did you feel in those initial few days?
The initial few days, Sean, it was delusion, really. It was just, it doesn't, I can walk, I can, we have this, especially I didn't understand the knee, and I do now, trust me, but I just didn't understand. I was like, well, if I can walk and I can punch and I can stand, and I was like, yeah, like it's all right. It's just a little tweaker. But that's what I thought was been dramatic when he rang me. I was like, oh, no way, like, because it didn't balloon out or anything or that, So, but but yeah, no, it's just delusion, Sean, really, to be honest. And yeah, you just push through it, and then you're like, oh, I'll be grand, and I'll just strap it up, and I'll go in, and I'll fight, but yeah, then I was like, do you know what? But the sound of 9 months to a year, for 6 months to 9 months to 9 months to a year, it didn't sit me well. I was like, do you know what? And I'm in a good position now, and like they were promising me tournaments then after, but it will be there. But to be honest, Sean, it didn't really hit home until when my opponent replaced, the guy that replaced me ended up getting to the final, and that was tough. That was like, no way, like, yeah, like, and then the tournaments, they're not doing tournaments anymore, and I was like, oh, do you know what? And then I was starting to doubt myself. Maybe I should have just went in with the knee and done it, and they're not doing tournaments anymore. I was 3 fights away from a world title, and it was just all this started coming down. But I was trying to be God in that situation, which we all struggle with. But yeah, I just handed it over, and I was like, you know what? No, it was the right thing, and it's in the past now, and I'm just looking forward now at the minute. And but yeah, like 2 people over the course of the injury asked me. Everybody asks me at the knee. You have the conversation 1,000 times, but 2 people said to me, "How's the head?" And I was like, "You were injured before, eh?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I know, because you asked how's the head, And yeah, I'll be honest, Sean, it was tough. It was tough in the sense that I kind of had a little bit maybe of an identity crisis, in the sense because I'm a fighter, and for the first time it was taken away from me that I couldn't fight, and I was like going to the gym doing my rehab with, like, the shift workers, the old age pensioners, and I was like, it was really tough, like, and I study weekends part time, and it was during the summer. I didn't do that. I couldn't do that. I turned 30. I couldn't work part time to make a few pounds. This is me living. This is what I do full time. So it was a challenging time, and I genuinely feel off the back of it now, I feel like genuinely a new man. I feel like I really showed the real Ciaran Clarke in there. I think in the past I maybe fought with, even the way I fought in a certain style, it was now I feel freer. I found myself, and I'm not defined. But and actually, a lot of I'm just chatting to my physio there, and a lot of people think that's maybe a weakness, or it's actually quite the opposite. I feel, I remember watching the Ultimate Fighter years ago, and there was a guy on. He came for money. And he was like, I'm here because I want to be. All these guys are fighting here, and if they lose, the whole world crashes down behind them. And I was like, no way, he's right. Like, he's there because he wants that, and he's going to fight till he. But with them, they might fight differently. They might fight with anxiety. They might, oh, if I lose, it's the end of the world. I'm not going to make this money. So, yeah, I just feel freer now, Sean, and I really feel like I'm going to show, and what I am, and I genuinely feel like a different fighter going into this fight.
You put up a post, I think it was a couple of months ago at this stage, or a good few months ago, that you said it was a heavy cross to bear, the injury and dealing with it. I know you're someone of obviously great faith. Did that help you throughout this? Was your faith like a real thing that kind of got you, you talked about struggling mentally, did that kind of get you back on track for the healing, I suppose, physically and spiritually and mentally?
Absolutely, Sean. And look, to put in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. But what I would say is, it's nothing in the grand scheme of things what's going on in the world, and what other people, like we said, if we throw a cross in the ground, we'd pick up our own. But it was my cross, and I had to carry it. And yeah, absolutely, Sean, it was just another reason to grow closer to God. And I've come out, I had a interview recently, and I never prayed to win or anything. I always prayed to, like, give me the strength to, no matter what happens, get through it, whether that be a win, to be humble, or in defeat, be gracious, and to use it as an opportunity to grow closer to God. And that's what I did do. Although I stumbled many times, Sean, and you go through a lot of emotions every day, and actually each day was like a year. I'd go through emotions, and just that's just natural due to the injury, what you're going through and stuff. And you're anxious because you want to get back, you want to be trained, you want to be further, and I underestimated a little bit. I always felt like the physios were always pulling people back. They were always like holding you back, but actually no, it was quite the opposite. You have to be really meticulous and careful with you're not coming back too early and stuff. So it was challenging, but yeah, like I genuinely, like I said, I really feel like it's like I feel stronger for it.
that fate as well. I always think, like, I look at your record here on Sherdog, and it's perfect. But if you look a little bit deeper, it's like full of people pulling out against you, like other people getting injured all the time. And you finally got injured, I suppose, and were the one that had to pull out of a fight. Is that, I suppose, something that your fate helps you with? That, like, you have to kind of understand that there's going to be knockbacks, but you have to get up and go forward again. And is that something like, a lot of people who have previously had an injury and maybe get another one, they know how to deal with it a little bit better? Like, do you think this, as you said, like, it frees you up for the rest of your career? Like, and it's hard to say, and I'm sure it was probably a lot harder 11 or 12 months ago to say that this might be actually a benefit to you. But do you think, like, it might make you mentally stronger? Dominic Cruz used to always talk about that.
I absolutely agree with that, Sean. And yeah, I really do, because talking about freeing me up and stuff, I feel like, I think that's down to my opponent, Dean, as well. I think I always needed the right opponent to show another side to me, and I think that is in Dean. But anyway, we'll talk about that. But yeah, I just feel now I'll be freer. I'll be able to express myself more, and I hope, I pray for that. You know what I mean? Because on the night's different, but yeah, no, I do. I really feel like that's the change in me. Yeah, it definitely has made me stronger. And I'm looking forward to showing that, really.
So that's kind of the mental side of it. For the physical side of it, how long was it before you were back training? I suppose, how long have you been back training now, and how long have you been going fully at it, I suppose?
I'm fully sparring since like full on now. Shackles are off since December, say. So I've a good run of months there now that I really feel yeah, and like during the injury and stuff, the first thing you could do was like box, say. So like when I tell you, like, Sean, I was just like hammering home, the fundamentals. Like, I was every day probably doing about 50 minutes to an hour just boxing every day, 6 days a week. Just doing my rehab, doing me, then it was back running. I was just coming in stage, and I was just yeah, it was great. Like, it was during the summer. It kind of happened at a good time in that sense, but then a little bit badly enough timed as well, the way what happened with the injury and stuff. But yeah, and then as well, like, to go back to your last question, like, as well, like, I just feel yeah, just gotten stronger, really, to be honest, mentally, physically, and changed.
Does this change you, like, technically? Or when I say technically, you said you're doing a little bit more boxing, obviously, because of the knee and things like that. But didn't you develop things technically that you can actually change your game tactically a little bit? That, like, you said you're freed up in this fight, but could you be a different fighter with your approach? Never mind just like, as you said, being freed up and how you fight in there. Is the tactical approach to this fight going to be a little bit different? Okay, it's different for every opponent, but for you yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned there, I think I needed the opponent. So I think Dean is that. I think Dean is, he's a tough challenge, and he's power on the feet. He's tough. He switches stances. Then he's the equivalent of a knockout blow to submissions. So like that, I felt I always needed that opponent. And I feel now I've over the couple of months I've been strange enough, maybe it was God preparing me for that, but I've been developing, like, into a style to beat Dean, if that makes sense, and regardless of Dean, actually to just improve and get better, so that really has helped me a lot. And yeah, it's just mad the way it kind of happened then, and again, like, going forward, like, best case scenario, I did mention that I was 3 fights away from a world title, but and I'm in the rankings, which I was surprised to see. Like, I was ranked number 8, which was nice to see, but then it was like, no way, there was lads there fighting before me in my absence when I was gone and stuff. And I know I'm still 10-0, but I think maybe Dominic Cruz mentioned it before. It's maybe because of the pay him on and stuff that, that's why I'm in the rankings there. And I was a part of the tournament, of course, last year and stuff. But yeah, like I said, I just think the opponent now with Dean, it's gonna bring that side out of me. And obviously he's obviously in great fights as well. So
I'll ask you more about Dean in a second, but you were kind of, I suppose, one of the famous ones who got I believe what was a good contract between the Bellator finishing and the PFL starting. Now, you mentioned it earlier as well, you were in the tournament, but now the tournaments are gone. This is your first fight in PFL as well, so it's all kind of changed there. How do you feel about all of that? And are you looking forward to getting the first fight in the big new shiny contract?
Yeah, no, definitely. To be honest, Sean, actually, basically they, without saying too much, they just basically fulfilled my contract. So I started pro with Bellator, and just to mention that as well, only fought, like, I was able to, so many things in my life I was able to do through that. Like, I was able to, as of recent, a lot of lads are coming out talking about that, but like, I was blessed, and at the time it wasn't like long term or anything, you never thought like that or anything, but it was just the way it happened. So I've had 10 fights in Bellator and I'm 10-0. So if you can imagine, I've won every fight and the money's gone up, and now they're just fulfilling the contract from previously. So, but I'm forever grateful for the opportunity I was given through Mike and John and the Bellator crew, and and they're just fulfilling that now. So it wasn't more like that PFL kind of it's them coming in now offering like that. It's kind of nearly they just took over from my Bellator deal, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing now to fight for PFL, and I think we've seen a change now certainly with the matchups and stuff now, like that, the way they're going about it now. They even cut certain lads, and they're not even taking on some lads. They just want to keep certain people now, and the way they're matching us all up, I think it's only good for the sport, and it's better for healthy competition,
I love the tournaments. I was a big fan of them. I think I remember talking to Brendan Loughnane once, and I interviewed him, and he said he loved the tournaments. I interviewed him 3 months later, and he said he hated the tournaments. So I think that's probably a sign of where the fighters are with it. They have a love-hate relationship. What about you? Is it like, I imagine that's a challenge you would love, but this is more normal MMA. This is, I suppose, what we're used to. Would you like the tournaments to come back, or are you happy the way it is?
I'll be honest, Sean, I personally love the tournaments. I thought it was something they had on the competition. Yeah, I was excited for it. I couldn't wait to do it. I really feel that was something they should have kept. Personally, I think maybe if they did it like the way the Bellator done it, with the Grand Prix and stuff, maybe not so much the no elbows and all that. Maybe not traditional PFL style, but the way they did the last one, I thought it was brilliant. I thought, yeah, it was such an incentive, and I didn't like the league style. I didn't like that style of it. I didn't like that. You get certain points and just beat I didn't really understand that, actually, to be quite honest. And I know that was kind of the model of the Don Davis with the NFL influence there and stuff, but I didn't really get that. Whereas I felt when they brought in that kind of Grand Prix, do you remember like the way Bellator done with the white gloves and like the $1 million tournament winner then, and then maybe then you could fight for the belt then after that, the actual world title then. But I love them, Sean, to be honest as well. It could be something they might bring back, I don't know, and I think it was brilliant there.
So it's weird how lineal, I suppose, your last 2 years has been. From you went 9-0 in March 24, and the MCL tear in March 25. In April 25, you had Kasim Kasimov, and in April 2026, you have Dean Garnett. So it's all kind of lining up for you. And you mentioned Dean earlier, but like Dean has been on probably the best run of his career. I was writing up the article about the fight, and like the level of guys he's beaten over the last few years, like the level, he's only lost to Lewis McGrillen and Boris Adegazelle, like two of the best prospects in the world at the weight class at the moment. You've already spoken, I suppose, about the respect you have for Dean, but how much respect do you have, and not just respect for him as a person, but as a fighter as well? Is this the toughest fight of your career? Because I wrote it down in the article. I said I think it was. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly on paper, like, I think I fought tough lads before, like, especially that amateur and early on in my pro career, like the likes of Jordan Barton and stuff, and I've had me hard fights. And I think maybe it was more maybe like Dean's a name as well, and I always like, and even seeing when he fought my last opponent, Granville, I think actually Dean underestimated him, to be honest, and Granville actually was a really close fight actually. I think you underestimated him, and it was a close fight. But yeah, I just think Dean's a name, but he's a name for a reason because he is that good. And like you said, he's only lost to like McGrillen, the European winner. He's been in the runner-up of the European tournament 2 years running. And then Magomedov, and he did really well against him. And then I think an American guy, which he was winning that as well. So yeah, like Dean he's a solid opponent, very, very good, around a long time. And yeah, but I do think I kind of would be, what would you say, talking to the certain people who are like, oh, would you want to warm up fighting? Like, no, I'm not into that now at this stage of my career. I'm just looking to get in and straight back into the mix. If I was involved in last year's tournament, I was supposed to fight one of the favourites, and I'm looking to get pick back up in there because I do feel that's the next stage of my career, you know.
When you get an opponent, when you get named, say you got Dean Garnett, are you a person who goes and watches every single fight, or do you let the coaches do that and take up what they say? What way do you approach it? Yeah,
well, like, funny enough, like, Dean was someone I would have been watching anyway, like, just from being in the same weight class and stuff. Never watching too much to be thinking, oh, I'm going to fight him or anything. I wouldn't really think too much like that with lads. But yeah, so I was kind of knew a lot about Dean anyway, from being on the scene and been around for so long. And yeah, I've been watching him, but I wouldn't too much obsess over it, because I feel then when you go in there, you're waiting for him to do what he's going to do, and then like, what if he doesn't do it? And then so basically you're reacting to him. So, but no, I have the mentality that like he's reacting to me, you know. So obviously there's things I have to watch out for, what he is good at. I'm not delusional, or you can't be too naive either, because I think a lot of lads are like that as well. They're very, you know, I'm preparing for a war, like, you know, I'm preparing for like what you would have seen in me fights, you know. And that's why I do think, by the grace of God and by the strength of God, I get through them. But I do visualize getting it's the bad, you know. I'm getting dropped, I'm getting back up, and you know, whereas I feel some lads, they're just going in there and they're just thinking their opponents are punching bags, you know, and you see it in their eyes. As soon as it's a fight, then they're like, oh, you know. So whereas with me, it's like I'm quite the opposite. I'm preparing for a war, like I'm preparing for like 3 rounds, and then it's like I'm coming back in the last round, or it's to a nail, and you know, that's what gets me up. That's what gets me onto the roads running, and that's what gets me up every morning to go train hard. And it's that, you know, because at the end of the day, and if it does come, that's an easy one, well, again, with the grace of God, but generally at this level now, the lads will be fighting. It's not going to be easy, you know.
Is that something you always had, or is it something you learned in fights? Because like, it was funny, I was listening to an interview with Gareth Bale the other day, you know, the soccer player, and he was like, every part of my career I had to prove myself again and prove myself again and prove myself again. Are you one of those people, or are you like, you got into a tough fight once and like, oh no, I never want to leave that happen again? Or did you always have that mentality?
I've seen that interview with Sean, and I thought it was actually really good, that interview with Gareth Bale, and I relate to him a lot, and I actually agree with him. That would be me. You know, I go into each fight, I'm 0-0. I don't see myself as, I don't know. It's just, yeah, the fight's the fight, and that's all I can focus on. I learned that in my amateur days, not to look too far ahead, that been IMAF champion or anything, because you have 5 lads to beat before that. So, yeah, just beat the man in front of me, and yeah, I just feel that's the constant. That's what something I do think is going to be hard to park the bus up when I do retire. It's going to be hard because you see it with fighters. They constantly feel we're getting better and there's more to be done and we could have done better, and that Gareth Bale mentality, I really did relate to that, because it's kind of like that, like you feel you have more to show, you know, and that's what does get you to keep going to the gym, I suppose, and getting better. But yeah, I thought that was a great interview, and I think I'm one of them type of people. I just feel yeah, and I don't think it's all going to be rosy or anything like that. It's definitely not, you know, because I don't believe in that you attract the law of attraction. You're attracting this if you're going to think bad. You know, I relate a lot to Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz, the 2 lads. So they're thinking like, you know, that's my mentality towards it. You know, it's like it's fighting. It's gonna be tough, and it's served me well so far, you know.
I like that. Last 2 things, Ciaran. I really appreciate the time. I know you said you don't like to look too far ahead, but like, is there a plan of what's next? I know they're matching up a lot of local guys now. Alan Philpott is fighting Caelan Loughran. Is that maybe a fight you'd like to fight to win, or that? Or are you looking at people like Sergio Pettis and people like that? Who like, where do you want to go for the rest of 2026, I suppose, after this fight?
Well, one thing I know for sure, I'd love 3 fights. I'd love to get back in there and just, get this one and straight back in. I'd love 3. As far as matchups, genuinely, Sean, I would say yes to anyone. If they're in the top 10, no matter what ranking they are, I'm number 8. It could be number 1, it could be number 10, it could be someone that's not ranked like the lads, or it doesn't bother me. I could show you, and that's not blowing me on trumpet, right? It's just I'm at the level now. When your fighters, and I get maybe lads trying to build a record to get somewhere, and I could see the reason in that, although I wouldn't have done it, but maybe I would have been stupid if I was in that position. But you're a fighter, you're there to fight, so no matter who they put in front of me, I've always been outspoken about it. They've offered me, some of the names might surprise you, and I've said yes to them all. So yeah, I'm a fighter. I'm there to fight. So no matter who it is, win or lose, yeah, I'll say yes. Because like I do feel that's next for me in my career. And again, regardless, even at the start, I was always like that. And I think it's a little bit of a chink in the armor when you're saying no to these lads and stuff. And I never really got that, to be honest.
I was going to be cheeky there and ask you who are those names you said yes to, but I don't think you're going to tell me. But I'll leave it. The last thing I wanted to ask you. This is on in Belfast, and like this is, I didn't do the maths out, but I would Garner. This is more of a home venue for you even than Dublin, is it? It's closer than Drogheda. You always bring a massive crowd with you. You must be delighted to be fighting in Belfast. It's for not just yourself, but for your family, your fans, and everyone like that. When you heard the venue, how happy were you?
Yeah, look, I was buzzing, to be honest, Sean, because it was possibilities are going to be abroad and stuff, and not many people are going to be able to go, and we're taking out crowd union loans and everything else. So, no, this is great now. They're all able to go now, and yeah, it's brilliant. And I think that arena is class. The way it's I fought there, and like you mentioned, March 24, and the way it I don't know, it's more spacious than the Tree Arena, although that's some arena as well. But the way it goes around, whereas the Tree Arena is just in your face, whereas this kind of goes around it, and then the ramp as well. So I think it's a great arena, and yeah, like that, it's close as well. So it's only up the road, and although I do think the time of the card is a bit odd, and a Thursday, and how late it starts, but obviously with the television deals and stuff, I'm sure that's the reason. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to Sean, and it's probably better off for me. What would you say, return fight?
Well, Ciaran, best of luck. I can't wait for it. I think it's a great fight. When I heard the matchup, I was. This is absolutely perfect because you needed to step up in opponents, and I suppose Dean deserved a big fight as well after the last 2 years he's had, and you both got that, so it's absolutely perfect. I can't wait to see it, Ciaran. Best of luck. April 16th, PFL Belfast. Get your tickets. Watch it on The Zone, I think it is, and all of that good stuff. Thank you very much for your time, Ciaran. Appreciate it.
Sean, thank you. Thanks a million.